Oh, okay, let's get this over with. Hello and welcome to the Studs Up podcast. I'm here with Muhamed today. Garrett couldn't join us. He actually had a hiking accident today in the mountains of Bosnia.
Yeah, we have some crazy mountains. Tragic fall. He's gonna be fine. He's being looked over with by my grandmother. She's taking care of him right now. She's putting some potatoes in his socks as we speak. What's funny? Why is that funny to you?
I was laughing at something else.
Yeah, because potatoes and socks actually take away the temperature, take away fever, and make you a better man.
Is it so? When the potatoes go into the socks, what do you do? Do you smash them across the person's face, or
No,
or do they use it as a pillow?
Actually, I thought it was the funniest thing I've seen in such a long time. I was just scrolling through my Facebook feed a few weeks ago, and it was some hippy dippy site that was promoting like all these vegan stuff, vegans.
Flipping vegans.
The first thing I looked at, it was like brand new remedy, household remedy to get your fever out of the way. The remedy was putting potatoes, slices of potatoes in your socks. Well, not in your socks, like on your foot, on the what's it called? What's the term? What's the bottom of your foot called?
I think it's just called it's the sole.
Yeah, the sole of your foot, and you're supposed to leave it there for a while, and eventually it will reduce your fever. And it was like brand new house remedy. And I sat there and said, my mother made me do that throughout my whole entire childhood, and her mother made her do that, and I guarantee you 14 generations deep we were doing this.
Yeah, it's a well-known Bosnian remedy then.
I just feel like
it's finally branching out to...
Well, what we expected is that we would branch out through like World Cups and players playing in Champions Leagues, but we've branched out through household remedies to reduce fevers.
Bosnia known for Edin Dzeko and
potatoes and
socks. Yeah, it's finally reached the full-time mother market in America, which is great. They've got potatoes and socks, essential oils, and Lululemon.
I feel like if I jumped the bandwagon on that, and when it was popping up. Like I'm telling you, like every girl named Catherine on my Facebook was sharing it, like every single one of them.
I know what you mean when you say that.
Huh?
What?
And I sat there. I was like, dude, if I just created some company that just made pre-made potatoes and socks. And I would just sell. Okay, but EPL, Premier League.
Yeah. Moving on. So we're moving on to Dave Says, of course, the first part of any podcast of the week. And he gave a review of the weekend games. We actually switched Dave Says up for this episode because he was writing about the previous episode and commenting on what we were talking about, but that seemed to get a little bit outdated. So we're now having Dave talk about this weekend's soccer in the Premier League. He tears into Arsenal in the first paragraph. So this is becoming a theme with Dave. I think he only hates Manchester United more than he hates Arsenal and Liverpool, I think. He says Arsenal might have grabbed the 3 points but look very poor defensively once again. He says, I tip West Ham to have a good season this year, but 3 losses from 3 games. Is it too early to consider them for a relegation battle? So that's definitely something we could talk about. As a City fan, all I have to say is where the fuck is VAR? The Wolves goal was offside and handball. City were not great against Wolves. One of the worst performances I've seen in a while. Garrett said the same in our group chat. Mm-hmm. Yet despite that, they still created enough chances to win the game. I agree.
I agree too.
They really did. Obviously didn't play very well, and Wolves have had a great start to the season, but you'd think that City should have made it 3 wins out of 3.
Absolutely.
And then he touches on the Everton game with Richarlison getting sent off. Obviously, Richarlison decided to get sent off the week that I put him into the fantasy team, but we'll talk about that later. He's got to show more self-control and cost his team the 3 points. He also says, if only Mourinho would have signed Slabhead Harry Maguire for his great goal. And he says, if only Mourinho would have signed him up. Nice little subtle dig at the end, I think, at me, probably.
Probably.
Keep up the good work. Dave, also to you, Dave, keep up the good work. We love your emails.
Thanks.
So let's go back to his email where he talks about West Ham. 3 losses from 3 games. Is it time to kind of consider that they could go down?
Absolutely. They're not playing as well as I originally wanted them to start. I predicted them fighting for relegation. I predicted them in the bottom 4. I think they're going to be battling it throughout the whole season. I was very hopeful, just like the whole Chelsea mentality they had going into the season. I didn't think they were going to do well. I was so hopeful that they were going to do really well. And right now we're doing really well, so I'm really excited about that. I was really hopeful for West Ham kicking it up. They have a fantastic manager, but it's not clicking. You could tell it's not working out for them. And I do think they're going to be fighting for relegation absolutely this season.
I thought that they were going to have a good year with Pellegrini coming in, and obviously he's a Premier League winner. He's proven, obviously, with a much better team. But they have improved in the summer, and they have a decent team there. There's enough about them to think on paper that they could finish mid-table or even start pushing for the Europa League. But obviously David Moyes came in and kept them up, left, and maybe it's more of a negativity around the club as a whole. I know that the owners are constantly getting into fights with the fans. The move to the new stadium obviously took away a lot of the...
Yeah, fans hate that stadium. I've seen rants of West Ham fans going off, and I saw photos of people saying this seat cost me £100, £100, and it was supposed to be up close, and it was you cannot see a damn thing.
Yeah, and it's the Olympic Stadium because it was built for the Olympics, and the reason why they build World Cup stadiums when they have a World Cup in a country that doesn't have enough stadiums, when they build those stadiums, they build them specifically based for the World Cup. They don't have the giant running track around them like the Olympic Stadium does. I think West Ham really screwed up moving into that stadium when they definitely could have stayed at the bowling ground and had much better of an atmosphere, one, and much more history there as well, because no history is being made in this stadium other than Great Britain winning medals in the Olympics. That's what it's going to be remembered for. It won't be remembered for Mark Noble sprinting down the middle of the field. I
don't think Arsenal's going to be performing to the level of where we all think they are year after year, 4th place, nonstop, maybe a 3rd, maybe a 5th.
Yep.
I think they're going to be a bottom half team. With this type of performance, they're going to be lower end. Absolutely. With these types of performances. I said last podcast, or maybe the podcast before, that Arsenal had a hard first 2 games where I don't think majority of teams in the Premier League would have won them, no matter who they were. And I said these next 3 games are critical. A 1-0, 2-0 game isn't enough. They have to absolutely dominate the whole game to even be contenders for anything. And right now they're just contenders for mid-table teams. They're going to be fighting with Fulham and Crystal Palace, Brighton. That's the teams they're going to be fighting with, not Chelsea, Liverpool. I should have threw in a United hit right there when I said mid-table, but I didn't want to be completely rude because I know you went through a lot today.
I did go through a lot.
We'll get into that.
Yep.
We'll get into that later. But one team that's, if not more impressive, with the way they're playing than Chelsea and Liverpool, even City, is Watford.
Yeah. Let's talk about Watford because they were able to win all 3 of their games so far. They've beaten Brighton 2-0, Burnley 3-1, and Crystal Palace this weekend 2-1. It was a bit shaky towards the end. I watched the Watford Palace game and Palace pulled one back and they missed the chance basically with the last header of the game. Palace could have tied it up and Watford were kind of against the ropes for a long time there. But Troy Deeney said it right at the end of the game. They didn't play very well, but they won the game, and that shows that they've moved on, that they've kind of gone a step up from where they've been previously, where they'll play poor and lose games. The sign of great teams is playing poorly and still grinding out those wins. So Watford were able to do it. They've got some absolutely dreadful fixtures coming up, though. Tottenham, Manchester United, Fulham, and Arsenal, all in a row. So it remains to be seen whether they will be able to continue that.
Yeah, they have Tottenham. Well, they have a hard game against Tottenham and Fulham. I don't know about United.
Me neither.
But they're playing well. I don't think they're going to be in the contenders, obviously, right now, as they technically are in the top four. They're going to be dropped off after the next few games. I think that Tottenham's going to put up a good fight against them. United, it all depends on what kind of state of mind they are after their next game, because right now it's not looking promising on any end with the performance of United as well as Jose's interactions, especially today with the press conference.
Yep. We'll get into that.
It'll be a hard game. It'll be a hard few games, and these next 3 to 4 games are gonna really solidify where Watford's gonna be. If they play well, if they even maybe draw a United, they maybe draw a Tottenham, I think that's gonna be a fantastic next 4 games, next 3 games for them. As long as they get a good draw in there, maybe 2, I think it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good results for them.
Not playing Tottenham away is that they're gonna play at home, and they also play United at home as well. So they've got the crowd behind them in both of those games that could potentially push them to, like you said, a draw or 2 or even a win, depending on how those teams show up on the day.
If they win, if they win one game in out of those 3, I consider that an absolute win, a win for the whole entire month. As long as they get through these next 3 to 4 games, they play decent, they get a draw, they get 2 draws, they get maybe a win. I think they should not be sad about that. No fan should be sad about that.
Yeah, I think if it continues, they could have a season like Burnley had last year, where they really push for the Europa League and maybe even qualify at the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fulham beat Burnley 4-2. Mitrovic, who you had doubts about at the start of the season, scored twice, and Andre Schürrle played an incredible game. Finally got his goal at the end, and you saw how much it meant to him when he was celebrating. I saw a lot of criticism based on Schürrle when he signed as well, that he hadn't done enough over the last 2 years to warrant a starting position in the Premier League, but I think he proved everybody wrong, at least in this game. Whether or not he's going to be consistent for Fulham is a different story, but in this game he played incredible. Jean-Michael Seri scored a wonder goal, but for Burnley to concede 4 goals, I know they were away from home, but Sean Dyche is definitely not going to be happy about that result.
Yeah, amazing game, amazing performances. They're going to be a solid team all season. I think Fulham's going to do a lot of upsets this year.
Well, yeah, they dominated possession, 64%. They had 25 shots, and Burnley only had 12, and Burnley only ended up with 2 on target for the 2 goals that they scored. One of those goals was, in my opinion, offside. So, in reality, Burnley really just had a bad day at the office, and it may raise questions about their workload. They played Olympiacos in the week. It's a lot of games to be played when Fulham were only on their 3rd. Burnley have been going for weeks already, so
yeah,
it's one of those things where only teams like the top 6 can manage to do that kind of thing, because they have all the money in the world to sign all the reinforcements. But a club like Burnley simply doesn't have the players good enough to be playing 60, 70 games a year.
Yeah, it's one of those unfortunate things where you see a team like Burnley make it into the Europa League and you're excited and you sit there and you are rooting for them while you're watching. Just like I do. I root for every English team I can whenever there's a Champions League game or a Europa League game. But they don't have the reinforcements. They don't have the players coming off the bench or coming in during a week where a top 6 team could have 3 games in a week.
Yeah.
And in those 3 games, for them to get a win, a top 6 team has plenty of options to choose from. They could probably put in a youth player to come in, maybe a few of them to come in through substitutions, put in their second striker, put in their second goalkeeper, put in their third, fourth. However, there's so many players they could choose from. Well, if Burnley did anything besides put in their starting 11, they're really not going to make it far.
This early on in the season as well, no team I think knows their strongest starting 11 because they've had new players coming over the summer. Some players leave. You really have to figure that out quickly when you've got the workload that Burnley have, and I'm not taking anything away from Fulham because they had played an incredible game, but
absolutely,
from watching Burnley last year, we know that they're a lot better than how they played yesterday. So overall, I think it could be a very tough season for them. With the transfer window closed, I'm not sure if they were one of the clubs that voted for it to be closed early, but if it wasn't closed now, there'd still be a work week worth of days to sign players and get those reinforcements. But it's too late for everybody now.
We'll see throughout the next few weeks to see which starting 11s each team are going to be starting to choose. I think I have a good idea of how Chelsea's is going to look. I think Liverpool has already solidified their starting 11. They're going to be coming in, especially teams like Fulham that have, 6 new players?
I think we counted 12 actually, but
you're kidding.
Wow. 8 in the
starting, right?
In the starting team, yeah.
Yeah, teams like that are really going to have to start playing around to see what their starting 11 is, and we're going to see it throughout the weeks. We'll see a lot more players kind of come into the groove of things. We already saw Wilf Zaha, who is one of my favorite players right now in the Premier League. Watching him play is unbelievable. So I'm really excited to see how he develops throughout the season, and maybe good enough to get signed somewhere to a top team, a Champions League contender team.
Yeah, I think definitely. Obviously, he used to play for Manchester United before he left. Just didn't seem to be in the level that he is now when he went. He probably made that transfer way too early in his career.
You've seen him play as a United player, and you've seen him play this season. It's such a difference how much he's developed.
Night and day. And that's the good thing to be said about Sessegnon staying at Fulham currently.
Yeah.
is stay there. You're needed. You're not going to warm the bench, although he did against Burnley. But you're going to get a lot more playing time there than he would at a top 6 club right now. Like we said earlier, he's only 18. If it turns out that he's improved more and more in this season and then maybe next season as well, think about signing him for a top club when he's 20 years old.
Yeah.
Zaha is probably ready to make that jump, I would say. I think he's
Absolutely.
definitely missing out on not being in Europe, playing in Europe for any team right now, because he's definitely got the quality. There's some gaps in the top 6 clubs that he could easily fill.
He would fit right into United squads right now.
Yeah, he probably would. Based on performances from a lot of players this season so far, I think he would. Yeah.
But watching him, he's obviously improved in all areas with the ball, off the ball. But his physique, he's just gotten so much bigger, stronger. That's one thing that's really impressed me. He's grown a lot. He's not grown as like Luke Shaw, who gained 30 pounds.
Right, but
I'm gonna be just doing United bullshits all podcast.
I almost bit then. It's okay. But yeah, Zaha I think could definitely do a job anywhere at any I think he'd walk into any team in England. Wouldn't necessarily say he would start at Liverpool or City, but he'd definitely be able to do a job at any of those teams. And I think his season continues along down this path. He could probably go in January, especially with, like we said earlier, with the transfer window closing early. I think it creates a lot more problems than it solves, and it's going to make teams spend more in January than they usually would because they didn't have the time over the summer to sign those players that they wanted to.
Yeah.
So yeah, Fulham go into the League Cup against Exeter in the midweek, so it's obviously going to get a lot harder for these lower in quotes lower league teams like Fulham and Brighton who go into the League Cup this early in the second round. So Fulham play tomorrow, and then they have Brighton at the weekend, and then they play City and then Watford. So definitely not easy, and especially they've only won one game, so I wouldn't want to get ahead of myself and say that they're playing great football consistently. They played really well. They seem to gel as a team against Burnley, but it will remain to be seen if they can continue that I am assuming, since they did have 8 new players in the starting 11 on the first game of the season, that none of those players will play against Exeter tomorrow night. But tonight, if you're listening to this podcast on the day it's released.
I think Alonso's the best fullback in the world right now.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I think it's Luke Shaw.
Be honest. Who do you think is the best left back? I think he's... Guy, I'm sorry for any Real Madrid fan right now. I think he's better than Marcelo.
I think you could probably have the discussion that you could probably have
obviously Marcelo has proved himself in the Champions League and blah 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 blah. But dude, Alonso is unreal. He's such a good defender, and then he's such a good striker. He's a striker. He's a fucking striker. He's a striker. He's a defender. He plays in the mid. He can score a free kick whenever he wants. He just chooses the direction. He can score. He can defend. He's absolutely the most perfect fullback I've seen in such a long time. Almost better than Ashley Cole, you know?
And you're not saying that from any
bias. No, I don't think that Ashley Cole is the greatest left back in English history, the greatest left back England has ever seen. I'm not saying that because I'm a Chelsea fan. I'm saying that as a Chelsea fan.
Right. You're saying it as a Chelsea fan. You're not saying it because you're a Chelsea fan.
Exactly.
You're saying it as a fan of football.
Mate.
You are a passionate fan.
Passion. I think he's unbelievable. Golly, I love him.
Why don't you marry him? And I know last week, or the week before, we said this isn't just going to be a podcast about the top 6. But it's not technically anymore.
Because, why? Why is the reason why?
That's because Manchester United lost today to a real top 6 contender, Tottenham. It was 3-0 at Old Trafford. The problems just seem to get worse for Manchester United and Jose Mourinho. Jose Mourinho was not only annoyed at the end of the game, he actually walked out of the press conference after saying, I've won 3 Premier League titles. We lost 3-0, but I also have 3 Premier League titles. I think this rant about Manchester United is going to have 2 parts to it.
Is it that deep?
It's deep.
I know, man.
It runs deep.
Honestly, that after watching the game, watching the press conference, I try to see where it's all going wrong. I think it all starts obviously from the back. I think if they signed Harry Maguire, if they signed a solid center back, some of the issues that they're having right now would not be around. But I think you would know a lot more than I do regarding United's issues. Tell me what you think right now is the biggest one issue that, if was resolved, would have not put them in the situation they're in right now.
You brought me into my part 1 of my rant, basically, which is the board. Obviously, last week I said I'm Mourinho out. I still am, but I think the problem stems from the highest level, and it is Ed Woodward and the board not backing Mourinho to sign Toby Alderweireld on the last day of the transfer window, or at any point in the transfer window. Not backing Mourinho will come back to haunt Ed Woodward and whoever is in charge of giving him the money to spend. The money was there to be spent. It wasn't anything to do with not having enough money. The only reason I can think the board didn't sanction the transfer is because Mourinho has signed Lindelof and Bailly, and they have Jones, Smalling, and Rojo. So 5 players that can play centre-back. None of them are very good, and Mourinho signed 2 of them, and they've not proven their worth. But surely when a board is at a point of not sanctioning a transfer and not backing their manager in the transfer window, that manager's career at that club is effectively over. Surely it has to be.
Yeah.
You can't say, no, we're not going to sign Alderweireld because you've proven to us that the centre-backs you've signed so far haven't worked. What's different about this one? Well, 1, Alderweireld's Premier League proven. He's probably the best centre-back in the Premier League, or one of. And he can slot right into that position. He's not young and unproven and unqualified for the job. So it's a completely different scenario than it was when they signed Bailly and Lindelof. Yes, they haven't worked out, but some signings don't work out. You have to replace them. Di Maria didn't work out, so he was replaced. Ineffectively, obviously, as we've seen this season.
Yeah.
These players that leave and they're replaced by, in some cases, better players. Obviously, Ronaldo, I don't think anybody can replace him. But
yeah,
the part that really annoys me is that even though I want Mourinho to leave, and I think that Manchester United will play better football under a different manager, I don't necessarily believe that the results will get any better because the board haven't given Mourinho what he wants or needs, which is a quality, experienced centre-back. And it was proven yet again today and yet again last week at the Brighton game that Bailly, Lindelof, Smalling and Jones, none of them are good enough for that job. To start as centre-back for Manchester United, none of those players are good enough. Smalling didn't go to the World Cup for the reason. Jones barely played at the World Cup for that reason. Lindelof was a shining light in that Sweden team. How he can't play like that for Manchester United is beyond. I just don't understand it, and that's where it has to come down to Mourinho's man management, because Paul Pogba again had a poor game, and we saw what he can do when he's given the freedom to play the game that he knows how to play at the World Cup. So it's a tough question to answer. If there was one thing, like you said, if there's one thing that, if changed, wouldn't have made this happen, it would have been at the end of last season to instantly hire a director of football at Manchester United and completely pass the signing of players off from Ed Woodward. Because he's, like I've said before, he's a businessman. He is not a football man. And you need a director of football that can come in and instill a 20-year plan. Because Alex Ferguson did that for Manchester United. He never needed a director of football. And football has changed since Alex Ferguson retired. Whether it's Mourinho being too stubborn to work with somebody other than Ed Woodward, or whether it's Ed Woodward being too stubborn and thinking he can do the job himself while also signing agreements with Chinese noodle companies. I don't know where the problem is. I know what the problem is. I don't know who is causing it. And I think there's two problems. One of them is on the pitch, which we didn't really see too much of today, to be honest, because Manchester United played a really good first half. And then obviously when you go 2-0 down, Mourinho's plan B is still to put Fellaini on the pitch and just lump it forward.
It's always going to be Fellaini. He's always going to sub him in for whatever reason. If you look at the Manchester United lineup, there's not a player. There's the player. One of the center backs isn't even a center back. One of the guys that plays at defense isn't even a defender.
Herrera played in.
Herrera was a defender.
And I think that shows Mourinho he's a master at this, and it backfired today. But he's done this before, where he puts a player in a position where they don't play, and you know this. You know, he puts a player in one of those positions. They have a bad game, or they scrape a win or something like that, and it's a message to the fans and the board that he doesn't have the players that he's confident in playing. He could have put Bailly at the back. He could have put Lindelof at the back. Lindelof wasn't even on the bench. Bailly wasn't even on the bench. Lindelof was on the bench. He could have swapped Herrera for Lindelof, or Matic for Lindelof.
But he's proving a point, and he needs to prove a point, and I understand that completely. He's done it before at Chelsea.
Yeah, but it's to the detriment of the players on the pitch, to the detriment of the fans, and overall it's to the detriment of the club, because I can understand it if it's towards the end of the season. It's basically wrapped up in a nice little package. Manchester United have completed their top four hopes. They did okay in the Champions League. Okay, I'll put Herrera at centre-back so I can show Ed Woodward that we need one. The transfer window is closed at this point, and you're on the third game of the season, and now is the time to play these games. It's ridiculous. I understand why he's doing it. I don't agree with it, and I think it cost United dearly today. Obviously, Lucas Moura had a great game. Can't take anything away from Tottenham because they played really well.
The worst player on the pitch was Eric Dyer, not on the pitch, in Tottenham, was Eric Dyer, and he didn't do half bad.
Yeah, I mean, they played well. Lucas Moura had an incredible game.
Trippier had a fantastic game.
Trippier
Hugo
again.
Hugo Lloris, I hopefully wasn't drunk, but it was a fantastic game as well. Did you get the joke?
Yeah.
Can you laugh? Can you laugh?
Yeah, he didn't look hungover at all, which is great.
Yeah, he was fucking steady. He walked a straight line and everything.
Yeah.
I agree. Not knowing too much about the board, not knowing how the whole system runs, but it's a clear message from Jose Mourinho to put in Andres Herrera as a defender to show, hey, we don't have the players that we need to play. I don't think it was the right move, just considering it was such an early point in the season where every single point right now counts.
And against Tottenham as well. I mean, I can understand
Yeah.
if you try to do it against Crystal Palace, who are perceived to be a weaker team. You can't be doing that kind of thing against Tottenham because they'll punish you for it.
Yeah, you have some of the best players in the World Cup currently at Tottenham.
Well, and Harry Kane, I mean, he's the best English striker I've seen for a long, long time. Trippier had a great World Cup.
If he continues like this, Harry Kane's going to be the greatest striker of English history of all time. If he continues on this rampant 20, 30 goals a season, every season, absolutely.
Yeah, he could definitely look back on his career and think that. But yeah, I mean, they had a great game. The first goal was poorly defended. The third goal was poorly defended.
Lukaku, if he maybe had some more balance and didn't fall over for whatever reason, he's massive and so strong. But I feel like if there was a gust of wind that was just a little too strong, I think it would blow him over.
Yeah, I mean his finishing hasn't been good. 16 Premier League goals last season, I think. So he obviously has the quality. The quality is there for him to be able to do it. But finishing was a problem last year as well. I think United ended up losing or drawing many games because of just bad finishing, and that's something that you need to work on in training, and they obviously haven't been doing that. Maybe they don't have a dedicated finishing trainer, but regardless, the game's over. They lost. The first half they played really positive attacking football, so that if there's any positive to draw from the game, it's that it was enjoyable to watch Manchester United again for at least 60 minutes of it.
Yeah.
If you're not getting the results, a change needs to be made. And if I was the board at Manchester United, I'd have a big question on my hands tonight going to bed about whether there is a change going to be made in the managerial position. Obviously, I think it's too early. 3 games in, Manchester United aren't the type of team to sack a manager 3 games in. But first time for everything, so we never know. Maybe we'll see Tuesday morning. But overall, I think it's promising. It's unfortunate that we had to go up against Tottenham off the back of the Brighton loss.
Yeah, it was just bad morale. There wasn't.
Yeah, and it's embarrassing to have Mourinho's highest home defeat in his career come now, when many people are just expecting this quote-unquote downfall of Manchester United, which apparently has been happening since Fergie left, and we've won a couple trophies since then. So I don't really know where that idea comes from, but
it comes from not being able to relive and or replicate the Fergie era. That's the only reason why it came from. It's just the same thing if Real Madrid right now got 3rd place and got knocked out of the quarterfinals in the Champions League. They'd be like, well, the Zidane era.
Yep. And then Zidane is available. Is he the type of guy to come in? Obviously, a lot of criticism has been given to Zidane over the past few weeks since he's been linked with United about him just being placed in a team, managing a team that was just all world-class players. But you have to hand it to him. He won 3 Champions Leagues in a row, and I don't know any manager. I mean, I couldn't just go to Real Madrid with Ronaldo and Modric and win 3 Champions Leagues in a row. So obviously he has some kind of tactical prowess there, but is he the man to take Manchester United next? I don't know. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Is there anybody on this planet right now that wants the job that could win the Premier League with those players? Because if you look at Manchester City's and Chelsea's teams, they're better than United on paper.
Player with player. Just looking right now at United's lineup versus Tottenham, it blows my mind that certain players are used in certain positions. Obviously, Andres Herrera is the cap of why on earth is he playing there. But I feel like Jesse Lingard would have been better in a different position.
I think the majority of those players need to step up. Alexis Sanchez is earning almost $500,000 a week, and he is stealing that from Manchester United's bank account right now. Whether he's being utilised by Mourinho the way he should be is besides the point, because if for that amount of money,
How much is it again?
I think he's on about $500,000 a week.
It's a joke. Having Alexis Sanchez get paid that much money is a joke. He is nowhere near at that level to be getting paid that much money. I mean, yeah, he played for Barcelona and he was the best player at Arsenal. He's not £430,000 a week player. That's just English football throwing English football money.
So these players that come into the team and earn that much money, you think they would fight with all they have to win a game. Sanchez doesn't look too bothered. Martial didn't play today, but he didn't care against Brighton, and that's why he was dropped, presumably. The only players that are really giving their all are Jesse Lingard and Marcus Rashford. But obviously they're from Manchester and they know what it means to wear that badge more than many of the other players. But overall, really, really poor, and I just can't help but think that it has the potential to be a Chelsea season where Mourinho had you guys in the relegation zone at one point. I believe it could be the start of a fallout with the players and the manager. He may lose the dressing room. I don't believe it's lost yet, but he's showing classic signs of a meltdown, and I think he will be. I do not think he'll be a Manchester United manager for too much longer.
If he obviously starts to perform, that's going to change, but that's kind of the answer that you could say to anyone that could potentially be sacked. I would love to see Jose Mourinho stay in the Premier League as a big Jose Mourinho fan, but if this continues happening, he's going to have to. But on the other end, who in their right mind, like you said, would try to take over this United squad and have the goal be win the Premier League?
Yeah, and ultimately win the Champions League. That's the type of club that Manchester United want to be, is fighting for the Champions League every year. The money's there to do it. The team's stature is there. You know, they've won 3 Champions Leagues. So it's not some, pipe dream that they could do it again. The ultimate goal is to be fighting for the Premier League every year and fighting for the Champions League every year. And who in their right mind is going to come in and be able to do that? It's a project. It's going to take a long time. If Mourinho leaves, it's 5 years minimum, I believe, to rebuild this team, because Mourinho is building a Mourinho team. If you bring in somebody like Simeone or Zidane, they don't play like Mourinho, and they're going to want to change a lot of those players mentally to have a new attacking system. So it's not. That's probably the reason why Mourinho is still there to this day, is that it's not an easy fix, and it never will be. And obviously with Fergie leaving, we're going to probably say this every week, nobody is ever going to match up to Alex Ferguson, but that doesn't mean that you can't.
Doesn't mean you still can't do well.
Yeah,
you still can't win the Champions League. You can't win the Premier League, and
exactly.
You can't continue doing good work. Obviously, you're not going to have a stand named after you, but you might win. And within 5 years, you might win 2 Champions Leagues, maybe 2 Premier Leagues, something like that. That's fantastic performance.
Yeah, and we've seen from other teams that it's possible. It's not this.
Yeah, Chelsea won the Champions League again with Ryan Bertrand starting and Roberto Di Matteo as their head coach.
Yeah.
That right there should tell you that anything's possible.
Anything is possible, and I think there's a lot of negativity surrounding Manchester United right now. And obviously it comes with the territory of being Manchester United and being the most successful team in England / the world for so long, that you're obviously people are gonna find joy when you fail. So that breeds more negativity because the newspapers want to write more stories. The podcasts want to talk about Manchester United more than they want to talk about Fulham. So I think it's a bigger task than it would be at a team like Leicester, but that's what you sign up for when you become Manchester United manager or a Manchester United player. It's a task, a big task that you have to undertake. Mourinho's not doing it right now. So I personally think somebody else needs to come in, whether that's Zidane, whether that's Diego Simeone, whoever it is. Give it to Giggsy till the end of the season.
You should start watching Love Island, bro.
Isn't it end?
It ended, man, and I follow all of them on Instagram, and I just want to be friends with each and every single one of them.
I can't wait until the next season of Love Island so we can have a segment on the podcast where you just talk about it.
If you yeah, don't say that twice. Come
on. I'm honest. It's gonna happen.
Just Dave. Okay, Dave. Thanks, Dave, for your weekly email. We're gonna bring our segment over to Muhamed's Love Island Inquirer, and that's where I'll talk about how Brittany and John are hooking up while Sarah's behind their backs watching.
Oh, those rascals.
But our fantasy teams are looking great by our fantasy teams. I mean, my fantasy team.
Yours. Another great week for you.
I'm having good week after good week. 183 points on the top of the league. You really can't I can't really see myself going down or losing any good points. Ryan, you didn't do too bad with 38 points.
Oh, I did do the worst out of the league.
No, yeah, you did.
Yeah,
wow. I'm gonna repeat that. I'm gonna go back in time and say, Ryan, you had a good try. You came in third,
yep,
which is not too bad when you're in a group of three.
And I put Richarlison in, and like I alluded to earlier in the podcast, I put him into my fantasy team and he got sent off. So he got me -2 points, and obviously I think Richarlison knew that I'd put him into my fantasy team, and that's why he did that, just to piss me off for any reason, and to help you and Garrett.
I mean, you have Mendy, who got fantastic 4 points. Bellerin got 4 points. Davies, 1 point. Richarlison obviously knew that what's happening and gave you -2 points. Mane 3, Hazard 8, who played a good game. Ronaldo Silva, who you thought again was going to perform an amazing game like he did 2 games ago, but he didn't.
Yeah.
Aubameyang, still to this day, do not understand why you still have Aubameyang.
I think it's time to cut the cord on Aubameyang.
I think it's time to cut the cord on any United player. Lukaku with 2, Kane obviously with 10, so you had a good try with Kane. Your bench didn't do squat. Shaw 1, Sanchez 1, Fabianski 5. Well,
Fabianski it's time to get Sanchez out of the team as well.
Yeah, Fabianski did a lot better than Schmeichel, actually. Good job.
It's happened. Well, you don't get points for your bench, though.
Well, I mean, still, I like to look at it. I think my bench was the best bench I've had all season. Ederson 2 points, Gross 1 point, Pereira 2 points, and Maguire a tenner on me.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that you didn't play him. You're still sticking with the Rudiger Alonso double act there.
Has it failed me yet, buddy boy?
Well, Rudiger only got 2 points, so.
Have we lost? No. I've been doing really well. Alisson, who is obviously the best goalkeeper right now, getting how many goals conceded? 0. Oh yeah, 0 goals conceded. Alisson.
Yeah, he's the best goalkeeper in the world.
I think, if not the universe. Alonso, obviously, who is the greatest left back in the world right now, with 11 points. Alderweireld 6, Rudiger 2, Salah 8, and I really am still. I'm hopeful that Salah is going to have yet again another amazing season. I think after this whole issue with him and the what is it? Egyptian FA, I guess that's the term.
Yeah.
All the beef that they're having right now, so maybe he's not in the right state of mind to be scoring hat-trick after hat-trick, so he's going to stick with scoring goal after goal each week. So I don't think it's going to be too bad. I'm still going to keep Sterling. I'm not getting him out. Pogba, I think he's going to stay in my team, like my starting 11, because I think he's the best player that United has.
Yeah, probably.
Dele Alli played a good game. If he only just fucking shot that right away instead of trying to put it onto his right, I think it would have been 4-0. Arnautovic, who's playing for West Ham, who was in the bottom half team, has gotten me 15 points already? 15 points already, which is not half bad for a team that's playing the worst out of the whole system. Firmino 5. Jesus I dropped, actually. I just dropped Jesus.
So yeah, Garrett is kind of hotly coming up on my tail here. Van Dijk and Robertson. So he's doing the double act as well as you. He started Van Dijk and Robertson, who got 8 and 9 points respectively. Didn't really do that great elsewhere. Ericsson obviously got 6. But Aguero and Lacazette up front only scored 6.
Tagen got him 6.
Them.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, in defence is where he got the majority of his points, and he is overall 137 points now to my 141, so very, very close at the bottom. Muhamed, you're just kind of streaking away. You opened up a further lead. Now you have 183 points total, so that's really great. So hopefully one of us can catch up to you before you start to open up an even bigger lead.
I mean, I would like it to be more competition. Do I see it happening in a realistic future? I know I don't. But I want to remind you that if I lose one, if I lose the next week, whatever, you guys do better than me. Just remember this. Yeah, it's 1-0. But I've won one Premier League fantasy championship. One. So, respect, man. Respect.
Okay, so that's it for another episode of the Studs Up podcast. Hopefully next week I will be in a much better mood and Garrett will be joining us as well, so we'll have a full roster. But until then, it's goodbye from me.
And I won more premierships alone than the other 19 managers together.
And from me.
And it's a goodbye from Jose Mourinho and Muhamed. Goodbye.
Bye.